Hello and welcome to Monsterama Junior 22. This is one of our virtual panels that we're providing this year. You have happened across When Godzilla Crashes at Your House, He Really Crashes at Your House, which is a very silly title for what I'm hoping will be a very fun and enjoyable panel. We're going to get into the Godzilla related details in just a second, but before we do that, I want to let our amazing, can I get away with saying huge, our huge panelists, I want to let them introduce themselves. I'm going to start right here with Bernie. Introduce yourself to our Monsterama family, please.
Hi, my name's Bernadette Johnson, Bernie for short. I'm a writer of various things, fiction and nonfiction. I'm not working on anything related to Godzilla, but I'm working on a cryptid book right now, which kind of, I managed to work Godzilla into one of the sections because they mentioned the Yeti in one of the movies. But anyway, you can find my work at berniejohnson.com.
Excellent. Thank you, Bernie. Welcome. And I'm going to let James introduce himself next.
Hi, everybody. I'm James Palmer. I write science fiction and pulp adventure. I am the co-creator and editor of a series of kaiju anthologies called Monster Earth.
Excellent. Thank you, James. And the reason Sean gets to go last is because I want him to introduce himself and his wall. Sean?
Really? Okay. My name is Sean Lincolnback, of course. I am a longtime Godzilla fan and collector. And Darren has noticed I collected so much. I collect almost everything, but especially my love posters more than anything. And yes, and sitting behind me are a few of my favorites, starting the first Godzilla movie, Godzilla Raids Again. Bottom there, a couple of Rodan posters. Got Destroy All Monsters, Spanish poster for Godzilla, and probably some stuff that's out of camera range too.
Excellent.
That's always been my love.
Excellent. So my name is still Darren M. Bush, sometimes known as the Professor. I am the virtual programming track director. That's what we're calling it this year. We're going to be back strong in 2023 with a live 3-day show again for Monsterama fans. So this is sort of like an appetizer before we get the machinery going in full steam. I'm also a science fiction and fantasy short story writer. I've got some short stories on the Kindle, and I just started a YouTube channel, which is essentially a virtual science fiction convention called Tables of Content. Please check that out if you like talking about science fiction movies, which that's why we're here. So yeah, so we're here. So for those of you in the audience who are wondering where this came from, first of all, you should be a fan of Godzilla. If you're not, you're wrong. There were several Godzilla movies that came up with anniversaries ending in 0 this year, and the funny thing is that we're not really too worried about which movies have anniversaries, because I found out that the anniversary depends on what country you're talking about. Some of my some of the people on the panel have seen my anniversary dates and they're going, no, that's off slightly. So anyway, whatever, don't care. That's not why we're here. So what I want to start out with is really something. Yeah, I'm going to start out with a softball pitch. Let's be honest. I want to bug James first on this one, but I want to ask you guys, where does the love of Godzilla, where does the relationship with the big lizard start? James?
It's it's hard to pin down for me. It was childhood. I'm in Georgia, as Darren is, and I don't know about everybody else, but on Ted Turner had the old Superstation, and on they would show cheap stuff. So on Saturdays, Sundays, weekends, they'd show all these Godzilla movies, and that's the first time that I ever saw a Godzilla movie, and I just fell in love with it. I think it's one of those things that you either like it or you're just blasé about it, or you think it's cheesy. I thought it was just epic and awesome.
Excellent. Thank you, James. And Bernie, how about you?
Kind of the same. I saw them growing up when I was a kid. The first one I saw was, of course, the Raymond Burr American recut of the original Godzilla, because that's what they played the most on television. And then the Mothra versus Godzilla, the Destroy All Monsters, everything. They would, I just saw all those from the time I was a small child to, recently, just anytime I turned on cable. Or put the DVDs in. And yeah, I just always loved them. They kind of primed me to love Pacific Rim as well, because it took so much from, the Godzilla movies, especially one of the ones we watched for this. But yeah, it's just, I love the, kaijus, and I also love that, he kind of starts off as a bad guy and becomes a hero.
We will get back to that.
Yeah.
because I have done my Godzilla homework inside out, and I am confused. That you guys will help unconfuse me, I hope. Sean, how about you? Where does the Godzilla relationship begin?
Same thing as everyone else. It's definitely the childhood nostalgia, like everybody else. When I was preschool, the first movie I saw was King Kong versus Godzilla, which is celebrating its 60th anniversary this year. In fact, just passed a couple months ago, I guess. But when I saw that, I was already a big dinosaur fan, and there walked the biggest, most gigantic dinosaur you could ever imagine, and it's really awesome. Good enough.
Excellent.
We couldn't see real dinosaurs as children. But we could see Godzilla and his.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Godzilla was the dinosaur fix for me as well. And there are some dinosaurs right here. So my story is basically the same. My family is like, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. A lot of my family used to be in Kingston, New York, upstate New York. And so my dad and my brother and I would drive from Atlanta to upstate New York every Thanksgiving to see that side of the family. And the local, like the local equivalent of what would become Turner Broadcasting, every Thanksgiving day, they would play 24 hours of Godzilla movies. And as an adult with my own child, I'm looking back going, oh, it's so the kids would have something to do while the parents were Thanksgiving, while they were cooking the turkey, and like to get the kids out of the kitchen. Brilliant. But my cousins and I, we just sat around the TV and just were like, and my first memory of Godzilla as a child is the Smog Monster movie, which little rough for a kid for the first Godzilla movie. Like I was like, oh my God, these things are hard. No, but I got over it. Godzilla is still my favorite of the big guys. Excellent. Thank you so much. So we've all, I'm not going to ask how old everybody is. That's just rude. But those of you out there guessing, have fun. But so it sounds like all four of us were Godzilla fans as children. I'll throw this out to anybody. How does Godzilla survive for 50 some odd years, 60, however many years, all these decades? How does Godzilla survive? How is he still relevant and current? And how is it that we still like him so much? Anybody?
Again, everyone loves dinosaurs. Well, most people. The good people. And no, I'm just kidding. But and all the messages, I mean, the movies are really wildly entertaining, and they're all kind of message movies too. It's like, they're all about weapons of mass destruction and pollution and everything else. So it's not just, nothing but entertainment. It's actually, they're actually really well done. It's just the right amount of camp and crazy, suited, monster fights and and message that, I think they resonate on a lot of different levels with people.
Excellent. James, did you have an answer for that one?
Yeah, I think it's what Bernie mentioned. It's the nuclear themes, the theme of nuclear power run amok, and today a very environmental message. And just there's something just very primal about it, and everybody loves dinosaurs. Everybody's afraid of giant whatever, of the giant bugs, giant ants, giant crabs, whatever.
Those were popular in the 50s, starting in the 50s, all those movies.
Yeah, so it's a very, very anything goes kind of world. You've got aliens and robots and all kind of jet jaguar, all kind of cool stuff. So
time travel.
It's just a lot of fun. I've introduced these to my daughter. I got her started watching Ultraman when she was little. And then graduated to Godzilla and Gamera and all that stuff. So just kind of, I don't know. There's just something about it. I think if you're primed to like that stuff, you'll love it, and if you're not, you won't. It's just one of those
I have
things.
to say, I love the phrase "graduated to Godzilla." That's terrific. Sean, how about you? Do you have any input on this one?
I keep agreeing with all the other panelists. I couldn't agree more. I just think it's the primal thing in there for kids. I have two twin boys, 8 years old. They don't really care about any messages right now. When we watch Godzilla versus Hedra, pollution, what's pollution? No big deal. nuclear war, it's not a big deal. They just want to
Mhm.
see monsters fight, and Godzilla delivers. So the messages are for us as adults. As we get over, we start to understand that a little bit more. So they pack something in there for the kids and adults, and they've successfully been able to do it for decades, as you say. I mean, every generation gets basically a new series to start with.
Mhm.
So there's something that appeals for every generation. And
Yeah, I was doing some YouTube research. YouTube's good for like the first couple of levels of research on this stuff. And I ran across like 10 or 12 videos, which were all the evolution of Godzilla over the years. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, it'll take a few minutes. And right, I'll see all the different, like all the rubber suits and everything, right? And a few CG things. Oh no, it's like a 13-minute video. These evolution of Godzilla videos are ginormous. I had no idea. Like I have lost track of all the different iterations of Godzilla. And so it is really amazing to me how people keep being willing to finance Godzilla movies, how they keep going, well, we know a little bit more about all these different technological things. It's been 60 years, so we figured a few things out. So they keep updating the story a little bit. Obviously, the using computer graphics instead of a guy in a rubber suit made it like there was the potential for it to be more realistic, but then there famously was that one where it was not even close. But then later they went back old school. One of my favorite moments, I forget which one it was, but it's one of the ones in the last like 10, 15 years where they went back to the original roar, and like that was what all the fans were talking about.
That was actually, I think, the major problem with the 90s. Was it 96? Whatever the 90s one was, they did not have that sound. So, there were other problems with it, but that was the thing where I was like, hey, that's like so important.
Yes. Even Hank Azaria couldn't save a Godzilla movie. But yeah, so the guys in the rubber suits, it's kind of obvious, but it's so much fun. Like I think Bernie, were you the one that said just the right amount of camp?
Yes. And I cackle every time he does like a boxing move. He does, so
Yeah.
you can put the guy in his suit jumping around and holding his fists up, like
Yeah.
it's perfect.
So let's do this. Let's go back to the now that we're adults, or at least technically adults. Now that we're technically adults, how did the early Godzilla movies stand up for you?
They
Sean,
still, they're still.
go ahead, Bernie.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
That's right. Go ahead.
No, they still are fantastic. And actually, they're way more like the first one. I rewatched the first and second and a few others. And it's just almost really depressing when you realize, oh my God, this is all about the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which I didn't know about when I was a small child when I first saw it. And all the stuff about weapons of mass destruction, the doctor who basically kills himself because he doesn't want his weapon to get into other people's hands, and Godzilla's stomping around doing exactly what kind of we did to to Japan during the 40s, but it's just really impactful. Also Takashi Shimura, and it's just got a great cast and everything. So silly dinosaur looking thing, but it still worked. At the end, I was like, no. when that's a spoiler, I guess, for anyone who hasn't seen it.
But which Godzilla movie did you just spoil?
I'm talking about the first one right now.
Okay, after how many decades is it no longer a spoiler? It's just you need to go back and
okay. Yeah. When he gets killed at the end, I was like, oh, no, I'd forgotten actually. So it was like watching it again for the first time.
But even Rocky lost at the end of the first movie, so it's okay. Sean, how about you? How did the guys in the rubber suits hold up for you now?
I think great. I mean, of course, the first movie is going to probably hold up the best over everything, but I think the whole run of 60s movies still holds up well, except for the King Kong suit. But the designs for most of the monsters are very good. I mean, I love the first Rodan movie. I love the design, the execution. That whole movie, to me, is one of the best. Everybody loves the design of Ghidorah. An awesome dragon. What's cooler than the big giant 3-headed dragon? There's just a lot of really creative creatures, and the suits, I think, all hold up really well. Except when you talk about using a Godzilla suit for like the fourth movie in a row. Maybe then that suit doesn't hold up physically as well. But the designs are still great. And the movies, to me, are still a lot of fun. Of course, really going to look at them with a little nostalgic twist. So when my boys watch some of the 70s movies, they're maybe a little bit bored by the storylines, but they still love the action. So at least that part's holding up for them.
Excellent. James, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, 7 or 8 years old, watching this stuff, I could tell it was a guy in a rubber suit smashing cardboard buildings. I mean, it still looks like that. I think what Bernie was talking about. I've got the Gojira when they released that on Blu-ray, the original non-Raymond Burr Godzilla, and I mean that it's eerie and gorgeous. He used a lot of director used a lot of footage from Hiroshima and Nagasaki in it. It kind of gives you mixed feelings to watch it. It's like we wouldn't have this cool franchise if that terrible thing had never happened.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, it still looks like what it is, which is what you're signing on for. I want to see a cardboard city smashed, by a giant moth. Let's do this.
Yeah. Yeah. A giant moth that can somehow pick up another kaiju.
Right.
Like what? Yeah. It's so ridiculous. It's awesome. Like it's like a circle. It's so ridiculous. It comes back around to the backside where it's just awesome. It's just great to watch. Even as an adult, I'm just like, I can't believe they're having Mothra pick him up. That's hysterical. So the oh yeah, and the three-headed dragon, I have to say, Sean, the thing that impressed me most about the three-headed dragon was that they didn't just like wire the heads together when it was flying through the air. The heads were moving too. So like even now, my inner 9-year-old still wants that job, to build a Tokyo out of cardboard and have somebody else walk through it and stomp on it with their feet and have the pyrotechnics guys blowing it up and lighting it on fire. As the inner child is going, oh yeah, I'd get paid. I'd take that job in a second.
Sure. When I don't know if y'all were around for the first generation of Famous Monsters, but they would open that up and you'd get lucky enough to get a Godzilla issue, and they would publish like a diagram of the set from one of the movies and show the little cities, and then they would show all the technicians, and especially when you talk about Ghidra, talking about several people, because they would have one for each head, one for the tails, one for the wings, and guys just holding the weight up there. So you would see just the big drawing of you're up above, the entire city laid out, the guys ready to press the bombs on the explosives and knock things over. It just looked like so much fun. I mean, that's exactly what you wanted to go out and do in your backyard, is build a big sandcastle city or cardboard city and knock it over and play monsters.
Yeah, and Sean, that's an important point, because back when we were kids and we were watching this on TV, we could go in the basement and play with Dad's tools and build ourselves a Tokyo and stomp on it. But the CG ones, like, you can still do that in your, at home, but it's such a different experience.
Absolutely.
Playing Godzilla at the age of 9 was easier when I was 9 than you 9-year-olds, you kids today with your CG Godzilla. Yeah. It's so. Ed, anything else on the rubber suits, the models, before we move on? Okay, so I do want to quickly cover, because you kind of have to. We've kind of touched on how Godzilla is a force of nature, a natural disaster, a nuclear incident. How do you guys feel? How do you process the fact that Godzilla is a walking atomic breath breathing allegory for stuff that isn't actually that pleasant? Sean?
Wow, that's a tough one.
It is.
I mean, when you're watching one of the 70s movies, you really can't even think about that. I mean, it just goes out of your mind. The superhero champion, wrestling champion Godzilla isn't a nuclear allegory anymore. It's just not. Now he's a protector of the world, maybe born out of nuclear destruction, so there's a good outcome. That really only comes into play in the first movie, and they graphically depict it, so you can't help but think about it when you watch the first film. Other than that, you try to compartmentalize it and put it aside, but you have to recognize the importance of it in the first movie for sure. And hopefully we've learned a lesson from that as humanity. But who knows with the way things are right now.
Yep. Bernie, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, like we said, they all have messages even beyond, when, in the 70s when it was much further past the bombings and everything. They kind of switched to pollution and just the things we're doing to the earth to make stuff like Godzilla and other things pop up and have to fight for it. So it's still, it's all kind of heady material, kind of, masked in really campy, goofy fight scenes. It's just gives it layers.
Okay. James, you want to try that one?
It's interesting to me how a culture different from ours chooses to process that kind of trauma, and derive some kind of meaning, maybe even a catharsis from it. I think that's really interesting. I mean, we haven't had that kind of large scale, stuff on smaller scale, certainly 9/11, stuff like that. But nothing on that huge a scale. Like, how do you even deal with something like that? And that they chose this way. It's just interesting to me. I don't know that I would have made the same choices, but like I said, it's a very different culture. And you kind of see that culture through through Godzilla as a lens, into the culture and that cultural trauma, which I think is just fascinating. I think it's very interesting.
No, that is a very good point. I mean, Godzilla came to New York and just needed a place to lay eggs. It's not anywhere close to the same. It's not the same emotional punch. It just doesn't have the same sort of heart to it, which I think is. I've heard a lot of people complain about that movie. I like that movie. I enjoy the heck out of that movie.
It's fun.
But I don't see it as as what Toho was trying to do with Godzilla. It's just this giant thing trying to lay eggs somewhere. It's okay, great. So yeah, I've always, like I said earlier, my first memory of Godzilla is versus the Smog Monster, and if the Smog Monster isn't an allegory for pollution is killing everybody, then what is? And it was. There's this one really intense scene where it flies over and just crop dusts everybody, and they all lay down dead. I was like, oh, good.
I love when Huff's basically Huff's smokestack. Basically, it's just inhaling all the stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the one Godzilla movie that I saw back then that I remembered what it was called, and like the other stuff's kind of a blur. Maybe you catch stuff in passing, or it's already been on an hour or whatever. But I remember Godzilla versus the Smog Monster, and back when we were kids, smog was a problem in big cities, and now there's pollution controls and things, and it's not the problem that it used to be. I mean, you used to not see the skylines of LA, New York.
Even in Atlanta, when I was a kid, I would look up and it was all brown, and you couldn't see the tops of the skyscrapers a lot of days. I grew up in Atlanta in the 70s and early 80s, and so the controls that were put in the 70s actually really did clean everything up. You can see the before-after pictures.
Yeah.
So that's funny you say that, Bernie, because if I was going to have Godzilla come to Atlanta, I would have him rearrange the airport terminals at Hartsfield-Jackson because they're Godzilla worthy.
And also some of the roads,
Oh yeah, if we could just get him to take 285 and just stretch it out. Yeah, just right. That's the Atlanta version of Godzilla. He comes in and he makes us put in rail.
It's all about urban development instead of mass destruction.
Yeah. So excellent. All right. So we had to go there, guys. It's Godzilla, and there's a reason why he's so important and has lasted so long. Is because he does, he'll punch you in the gut every once in a while, which is really amazing considering what he is. All right. So I think you guys have earned a couple of easy ones. So let's do this. What's your, not necessarily your favorite Godzilla movie, but when I say what's your favorite Godzilla movie, what do you think of? What do you want the fans of Monsterama to know is a Godzilla movie that you recommend that's dear to your heart?
Now, of course, the first one, Gojira, the Japanese,
Gojira?
not so much the Raymond Burr version. It's interesting to see them side by side, though, to see what they did and how they centered it all around Burr. You know?
Yeah, and get the Blu-ray.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely get the Blu-ray.
After this, Godzilla, or after the ones we watched for this taping, Godzilla versus Hedorah and versus Gigan had some, and Mecha, against Mecha Godzilla, all had some stuff in them that I was like, oh my god, they just had some really neat design. So Godzilla versus Gigan has that, it has that awesome Anguirus and Godzilla conversation, subtitled conversation. That's like the most.
I don't know if awesome's the right word, but sure.
And then Hedorah had just some beautiful cinematography. It had all that the different color design at the beginning when the woman was singing and everything. It just has some really gorgeous stuff in it. And the kid was playing with his Godzilla toys, and they're all actually fantastic.
All right, so Sean disagrees with awesome, but have you got something else that's awesome for us, Sean?
Well, it depends on what age group that we're going to recommend someone to watch. I mean, for the smallest kids, I would say what I call Godzilla's Revenge still, but kids, I think they call it All Monsters Attack, because it's got the kid as the lead star, and it's got wall-to-wall monsters in it. So, and that's what you want to watch for, is there's lots of Godzilla fights. When you're 4, 5, 6, you might not notice that there's 3 or 4 different costumes in that movie. He changes how he looks every scene. But that for a young one starting out, I would say that's the most accessible. For me, the nostalgia still gets me. King Kong versus Godzilla. That's probably still my favorite film. First, but it's a great costume design for the Godzilla, at least, and I really love that movie. But what's better than seeing the most famous monsters fighting it out on screen? For more serious adults, I mean, obviously, you're going to recommend the first movie to get it, and with subtitles in Japanese, they can watch it that way. Otherwise, from the 60s, I would recommend Godzilla versus Mothra. If we're going to do one of the later ones, I'd probably go with either GMK or Godzilla versus Destroyer.
James, how about you? What stands out in the awesomeness?
I love Return of Mecha Godzilla. I mean, when you've got, I love dinosaurs. I love robots. What's better to me than a robot dinosaur? Nothing. It's just a great movie. At the time, it wasn't that popular. They didn't make another one until Godzilla 1985. That came out in 1975, 74, 75. So they waited 10 more years to make. But I love that one. That's one of my faves in the whole franchise. Just anything with Mecha Godzilla.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Sorry, Bernie, go ahead.
Second, Godzilla versus Mothra, because I'd forgotten that was probably the one I remember most from childhood because of the 2 tiny singing women. That was like, I thought that was fantastic when I was a kid.
Yeah, my guess is, and I'm sure somebody in the audience will correct me. My guess is that has some significance to Japanese culture that I'm just totally don't get. Like it's the tone around those 2 little whatever they are, talking in sync. There's something so serious. Everybody's like, oh, we should listen to them. Like, I don't know. I have no idea why, but I'm sure there's something in Japanese culture where they're like, oh yeah, that's an important, serious thing that we know about that you people in the United States don't get necessarily. So I want to call a timeout. I want to pause for a second. Sean, your microphone keeps going in and out. I don't know if you noticed. I think it's when it's smoke him if you got him. I think it's when you lean in a little bit or something. Can you talk at me and?
All right, we'll keep talking here and see what happens. I'm supposed to be using the one from the computer, so maybe when I lean in more, is it louder? Is that what you're saying, or is that when it goes out?
It felt like it was the other way around. So every once in a while, we lose like your 5th word every once in a while. Like it wasn't enough to interrupt you, but every once in a while you drop. I just wanted to let you know. I don't want you to stress about it, but I'm I just wanted to let you know.
Okay, I apologize. I mean, I'm
No,
using
no,
the
no.
one that's in the desktop, so I'm not sure
Okay.
what I can do
And,
to
and guess
do
what? Now
anything
you're
about it.
fine. As soon
Okay,
as I said that, your
I'll
sound's
try to
fine.
stay right here then.
Right, just freeze. But but actually, if we have any trouble with the audio, I mean, we can always go back, and if you want to have Suzanne insert subtitles for you, that would actually be appropriate for this movie, for this panel. We'll subtitle Sean if we
Right.
need to. I just want to let you know about that. Again, I don't want you to
Okay.
worry or stress about it. It wasn't that bad, but I had to let you know just in case. And it wasn't like you turned your head or anything like that. It just don't know what it is. So
Okay.
okay.
Apologies.
And if I just ruin the second half of the panel for you, I'm really sorry, but okay.
Yeah.
So you ready? We'll go back. Anybody else need a minute before we? You guys are such troopers. I really appreciate that. We'll wait for Bernie to stop eating a building in Tokyo.
I'm chewing on a cough drop. I don't know why I did that, but
So Suzanne likes outtakes, so this is not a problem. Suzanne is collecting outtakes, and she's got like the blackmail emails ready to go for everybody, including especially me. I've said some really stupid stuff during the outtakes over the years. But anyway, so all right, so we're back. We had to pause because Godzilla turned out the electricity for a second there, but we're back. So one of the things I always wanted to see, like this is like headcanon kid fantasy stuff, is I love the idea of a bunch of Toho people sitting around talking about the next Godzilla movie, going, okay, could they like take a parking deck and fill it full of NyQuil so that when he eats the building, he falls over and goes to sleep? And I just wish that there was like any evidence at all that they had that sort of conversation. Because how do we like get him to go to sleep with like and have every bit of NyQuil in the entire continent brought in and just dumped somewhere? Anyway, yeah, these are the sort of movies that made me think about, the allegory of nuclear war and how fun it is to watch these movies as a kid at the same time. It's very confusing for my brain. All right, so let's talk about, just for a couple minutes here, let's talk about Godzilla's legacy, if you guys don't mind. One of the things that I want to ask you is, Godzilla isn't just a lot of movies, right? He's been on screen a lot, but it isn't just that. He's left a legacy. There are, and I'm already looking at James. There's offshoots in all kinds of media. We know there are comic books and novels and things like that. Video games for sure. Where do you like to play with Godzilla outside of the movies? What's your favorite way to see or experience the Godzilla culture? Anybody want to take that one first? Tell you what, I will go first. I'll give you guys a break on this one. I love the fact that we have Cloverfield, right? J.J. Abrams tried to do an American kaiju. It mixed results. Didn't have the impact Godzilla did, I think, for obvious reasons. But one of the things I really loved about that film was the fake media leak in which he had his artists draw up completely bizarre, incorrect monsters and leak them to the internet, including one that was essentially a humpback whale with gorilla arms and gorilla legs. If you haven't seen the gorilla whale from Cloverfield, you got to go Google image it, because it is hysterical when you find out that they did that on purpose to throw us off the scent. And I think the coolest part of that is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Gojira translates to gorilla whale. I think that's where they got that idea from, is what the word what Gojira originally meant, that for us became Godzilla. So that's my favorite example of that, is J.J. Abrams being a fan and sneaking that at us. Okay, so I gave you guys a minute to think about it. Who wants to tackle this one first? I'm going to pick on Sean this time. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's obvious from looking at my walls. The way I enjoy Godzilla without watching a movie is the visualization. For me, the posters really capture that. That's something from the time the movie was released. And probably for most people, a lot of people collect the toys, the figures. I have a bunch of those too. But the posters, to me, just take you back to the exact moment when it was in the theater. So you can't get anything closer to that, the intentions, what they were trying to do, than have that that kind of feeling in that. And plus, it also brings back the memories when you were a kid. I, I got to see some of the '70s movies in the theater, so when I look at a Godzilla versus Megalon poster or the American one and see him on top of the World Trade Center, I know that, of course, didn't happen in the movie, but I can remember standing in line waiting to buy my ticket and thinking, man, this is just going to be awesome. And so,
Yeah.
again, it all comes back to nostalgia for me, and you just get that feeling, being transported right back to the theater when you see the paper stuff like that.
Yeah. Excellent. James, what about you? What's your favorite way to encounter Godzilla outside of the movies?
He's a very visual property. So some of the comics that IDW does are very cool. I have a few of the figures too. I like art. I have, if you can see, kind of right here. You can't really tell, but that is Rodan, drawn and painted by Mark Maddox.
Oh,
I
excellent.
bought
Mad
that from him.
Scientist cover.
Yeah, I bought that from him one year at Monsterama many moons ago. The famous monsters covers that would have Godzilla, Bob Eggleton's Godzilla stuff.
Mhm.
Just visual art for me. I don't have a lot of room for figures and things, but you can just see them in a different medium like that. It should be visual.
That's a very good point. Good point. Bernie, how about you?
Well, I love the toys. They kind of throw me back to childhood, back when I couldn't afford the toys. But that's why I have so many toys now. I'm pointing because they're lining the walls. But
Yeah.
and
Got a few up there.
a lot of fun, fantastic. The art, seeing various people's depictions of Godzilla. There's one that I love, and I can't remember the artist. With the Godzilla and the great, it's sort of a mix of that and the Great Wave at Kanagawa, that fantastic, print painting. Um, and also you mentioned Cloverfield. Well, the music, like the music and the sounds from Godzilla are fantastic. And the one thing I love the most about Cloverfield, I thought it was a lot of fun. The movie was very fun, but the music at the end was perfect. It was very, very it had the feel. It wasn't exactly like Godzilla music, but it had the feel of old school Godzilla music, and things like that are just great. Also, listening to YouTube videos of people trying to recreate the sound using a bass. Those are fun too.
Oh, excellent. It's funny that James was talking about how you have to experience it visually. I actually just love the roar. There's a comedian. I'm not gonna pronounce her name correctly. It's Eliza Schlesinger, something like that. Her impression on stage of Godzilla is pretty good. It's very funny. Now, it's in a very strange, weird context, but it's definitely Godzilla she's imitating. There is no doubt in my mind that's the kaiju that she's trying to do. But the other thing I think is so amazing is how much it is soaked into the culture. Blue Oyster Cult's song Godzilla
Hmm.
is fabulous. I see a bunch of people going, yes,
Oh yeah.
because it is such a, like, I haven't done any deep analysis on this song because part of me is worried it'll ruin it for me, but I grew up with this Blue Oyster Cult, love it. And there's this bit in, like, I don't know if it's the bridge or if it's like right in the middle, where all of a sudden in the background there's just some guy yelling in Japanese at full
Yeah.
speed. And I assume that if you translate it into English, it's relevant to the song. I don't know exactly what the translation is, but the Blue Oyster Cult obviously they were fans. They wanted to do a song about Godzilla. They made him stomping around in Tokyo, and just it's just a wonderful fan interpretation of the Godzilla experience. Does anybody know what the English translation is off the top of their heads?
I think it's basically a warning that, like, Godzilla's approaching, take shelter
Take shelter. Okay.
announcement. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I just again, I want to be in the room when they get the phone call. Wait, who is you're an American rock band and you want to borrow what from one of our films? What? Who are click? I want that conversation. I want to hear that conversation. All right, good. So any other standout interpretations or theft of Godzilla-ness that are not so good that we want to talk about?
I was going to say Pacific Rim, but I think that's good. But-
I'm okay with that. I'm okay
I
with
like
that.
Pacific Rim. Yeah,
I did like it. That
I
is,
dug
you
it.
know what?
Watching Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, there were some shots that looked like, Pacific Rim would just taken them right out of that movie. Like her standing on the platform at the end with the Mechagodzilla and the foreground and the background, and just there were some. It borrowed a lot from that. I'd be surprised if
Yes.
it anyway.
I'm okay with you guys not answering that question to talk about Pacific Rim. That's perfectly legitimate. One of the things I remember about the Pacific Rim movies was there were 3 or 4 moments where the monster, the bad guy, was about to do something, and my Godzilla database went, aha, and then it did something completely different. He subverted the imagery of the Godzilla films in Pacific Rim. And I don't think he was poking fun at us as fans. I think he was making it. I think he made it a little bit jarring to get our attention. Like I think he
Yeah.
intentionally did that to let us know he was thinking about Godzilla when he filmed that.
There was really
There's
a lot of stuff. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was done. Go ahead.
No, somebody else was. Yeah.
Oh, who's Sean? Did you have something for that?
No.
So should we put you on the spot, Sean, and ask you how you felt about the Pacific Rim movies?
You can, yeah, I'm not a fan.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm probably the only person that's not. But I would probably like them better if I was. I don't know. I watched them both. They the need for me to see them again.
Okay, no, fair enough. No. If all 4 of us agreed all the time, it gets boring very quickly. I will not follow up with you, Sean, on this panel, but I do want to talk to you about that later. I would love to get your insights in this. I can see, this is a guess. You don't have to respond, but I can see Godzilla purists going, that's cute. That's cute, but no. I enjoyed the heck out of those movies, knowing full well that obviously Guillermo is a fan of all of this stuff. It's so obvious, but there were some moments where I went, that was a little weird, but not in the rubber suit kind of way, in a storytelling kind of way. Anyway, all right. So we're more than halfway through. Are there any Godzilla ripoffs that are worth mentioning? I have one, but I want to go last. James, Bernie, can you guys think of any?
I know there's one I haven't seen, and I'm curious what everybody's thoughts are if they have the Anne Hathaway movie Colossal, because I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't either on my list.
Okay, so I will not take a lot of time with this, but it is not a kaiju movie, but it has kaiju in it.
Okay.
There are a bunch of movies now. I think there's another one. I forget who made it, but it's called something like I Kill Trolls. And it's Colossus and this movie are very similar. There's a bunch of these now where this is just like the original Gojira. This is a person processing trauma and pain and emotional distress, and the symbolism that they pick is kaiju, or giant robots, or both.
Mm-hmm.
So, or big monsters. So it's that sort of movie where I went into watching Colossus, going, it's got a giant robot on the back cover. No, it's not a kaiju movie. But it's got kaiju in it, as I said. So I would recommend it for one viewing. I would recommend seeing it just so you see what they're doing. It's interesting, but it's not a Godzilla movie.
I guess Gamera might qualify as a kind of a Godzilla ripoff.
Say again, Bernie?
Gamera movies.
Yeah, I'm not.
Oh, I love Gamera.
But
I love the Gamera movies. Those are great.
Yeah, I have to admit, Gamera confuses me a little bit because it's like it seems obvious that they were trying to ride Godzilla's tail, but then Gamera is so strangely different. He is kind of his own thing, sort of.
Yeah.
Spinning flying turtle.
Oh yeah, they both have the weird flying effects where you're going, what?
Yeah, that's what I like about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just so nuts, and it's more, maybe a little bit more for kids. Maybe, it's kind of sorta. I mean, there's kids sing the theme song and all that, so maybe a little bit more kid friendly. Yeah, Yeah, there's
Yeah.
some kid characters in there, so maybe it's a little bit more for kids. But
Yeah.
I enjoy those.
And also they have MST3K versions of or a version of at least one of them. So
Yeah,
so if you want to watch it and make fun of it, it's
yeah.
Oh yeah. When MST does Gamera, it's so good. They have so much fun with that. Sean, any other Godzilla ripoffs that are worth mentioning?
I'm an accept no imitations kind of guy. Stay pure.
Excellent. I like
I mean,
Godzilla pure.
I think the best ripoffs have come from Toho. I think Rodan and Mothra. The additions they made to the Godzilla universe
Mhm.
are the best second giant monsters.
Yeah, I actually didn't know until recently that Mothra had its own movie before
Yeah.
Godzilla versus Mothra. I don't know how I didn't know that. I bought it, of course, so now I got the DVD and I was watching it earlier today.
So we've all heard of the MCU, but before the MCU there was the GCU.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I didn't understand how complicated the relationship with Mothra was. I really didn't. I'd seen Mothra as a kid, but I just didn't get all the interconnectedness. It's amazing. The one that I do want to point out, and I'll try and be brief here, and this is another Mystery Science Theater first time exposure, was Reptilicus,
Mhm.
where like the way the robots explain this movie is that somebody in Denmark wanted to do Godzilla, and this is what they came up with because they weren't really paying attention to what Godzilla was doing. And I love watching Reptilicus and just going, oh, Godzilla movies are so good, so much better than this.
This is
But there's
probably
this really great tie-in. My second director, Kyle, he's like, oh, you got to read this Jim Lansdale story about Godzilla, and I was like, okay, all right. So he hooks me up with the Kindle book. It's called Godzilla and the 12-Step Program or something like that, which the title in and of itself is very funny. It's a good pun. So it's this story about Godzilla going through a program in which he will resist the urge to smash buildings and step on people and destroy subway trains, right? And there's this one throwaway sentence where he gets on the phone and calls his sponsor Reptilicus. And if you know Reptilicus, that's really funny. Really, really funny. So yeah, so good for Lansdale. All right, guys. So we got a few minutes left here. We've done past, present, time for future. What's the future hold for the big guy? Sean, I'm going to pick on you first on this one. We got more movies coming?
Well, I think we know that there's going to be another movie in the Monsterverse,
Mm-hmm.
and certainly my boys were very excited about that when I told them that there's going to be a sequel to Godzilla vs. Kong. They were very excited. So the next generation's coming up. The fan, they're getting ready. They're going to enjoy it just like we did when we were young. I assume that Toho will be following up after that. We already know they're going to do another little short for the Godzilla vs. Gigan, like they did Godzilla vs. Hedorah last year. So they will do everything they can to keep Godzilla in front of us. I have no worries about that.
Excellent. That's good news. So Bernie, what about you? How are you looking forward to more Godzilla?
Oh yeah, I love the new ones. I think they captured more the spirit of the original than the '90s one, which it had its moments, but wasn't as fun. But yeah, I'm very and Godzilla versus Kong versus Godzilla was really entertaining, and I loved it. And then the second Godzilla movie had sort of a destroy all monsters feel. All the monsters came together, and I hope they make more and more and more.
Excellent. And James, how about you? You looking forward to more Godzilla movies?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think Big G's going anywhere anytime soon. I think we'll get more movies. The IDW comic is still going.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll get an animated series in there. Another one at some point would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
We had they did Shin Godzilla. They've done a Shin Ultraman. So yeah, he's not going away. Nobody's tired of him yet.
Excellent. So James, I'm gonna put you on the spot here because you've worked on is it kaiju anthologies or just monster anthologies?
Well, it's called Monster Earth, but they're kaiju. They're giant monsters.
Okay. And have you guys are you guys able to insert Godzilla into your stories?
Unfortunately, no, because of copyright issues. But
Hmm.
we can create our own monsters, and everybody, all the writers had great fun doing that. I mean, there's a giant polar bear, there's a giant Sasquatch. Uh,
Uh-oh.
I mean, there's all kind of crazy stuff. So we have fun with the theme anyway, even if there's not a Godzilla prototype or archetype in there.
Hmm. Well, so this might be an obvious question, but can I assume that all of these authors are Godzilla fans?
Yes.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
I assume. I don't think anybody said, "Well, I hate Godzilla, so
Well,
I'm going to write a deconstructionist yarn." But yeah, I mean, everybody's big fans from way back, just like I am. So it was a lot of fun to do and bring those people together to do
excellent.
something cool with kaiju.
So if somehow Toho would let you do Godzilla stories, would you do Godzilla stories?
Oh, I absolutely would. I would love to do Godzilla stories, a novel or some comic, anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And so really where I'm going with this, James, is do you think there are more kaiju stories out there to be written?
Definitely, I I,
Excellent.
I definitely think so.
Okay. That's great. All right. So I mean, we're starting to run out of time here. We got a few more minutes. Is there anything that you guys think that I missed? Is there a question you wish I'd asked about Godzilla? Anything worth adding at the end here? Sean, you got to have something. I've got to have. There's got to be something you can correct me on, if nothing else.
Um, the gorilla whale may or may not be a made up thing later on. Those two words do neatly fit together, but I'm not sure that's was the intent when they actually made the name.
You know what? Because I got it from the internet, it's possible, but I could have sworn I actually double checked.
I
And of course,
oh yeah, that's kind of like the King Kong one in the Japanese version of King Kong versus Godzilla. I think that's been a falsehood or a rumor that's gone around forever. But I think that I want to say that Steve Reifel and Ed Gazczewski probably laid that to rest in their
okay,
research. That wasn't the actual intention.
really, okay. Well, what I'm going to say is that I am probably wrong about that. I admit that, but the way that it was presented to me originally around the Cloverfield movie, J.J. Abrams and his sneaky little internet trolls, the way it was presented and everything, all the pieces fit together so beautifully that, like, I don't care if it's wrong. I think it's an awesome story.
It
Admitting that
is for
it's
sure.
probably wrong, but it's such a good story. It's one of those things where Sean, you reminded me of something that was kind of on the list of possible things to talk about is like Godzilla could sneak up on people. Okay, wait. How do kaiju sneak up on people? I'm pretty sure he did it in at least 2 or 3 of the movies where he's just suddenly there. It's like, "Hi, you didn't know I was here." Yeah, it's just
Right.
it's
In
it's
Jurassic Park, the T-Rex walks and it shakes everything, and so just imagine now something that's 20 times that size,
yeah.
totally silent, just all of a sudden appears out of nowhere.
Yeah,
God, wouldn't that be great if some animator out there could do a little thing where a bunch of T-Rexes are having a drink and suddenly one of them looks down at their tea and it shakes and it's Godzilla, right? Because the scale is correct for that. All right, guys, let's start wrapping this up and then we'll pay the bills. Any parting shots on the man, the myth, the lizard, Godzilla? Bernie, I'm gonna bug you first on this one.
Did we? I don't know if we mentioned this during the taping part. The whole thing where Godzilla is both villain and hero alternately is just really fascinating and wonderful.
Yes, yes. I
Comes
think
in and saves the day as often as he comes in and wrecks the place.
yes. I got
We can
during my homework for this panel. I got a little confused about the time frame of all. Yes. So, Sean, did you have
well,
something for
so
that?
we I was gonna say, well, we can take that we can use the horrors of nuclear power and harness it for good, and get some clean energy out of that. could read that into it if you want to. I'm not sure that was their actual intention when they started turning those movies into wrestling epics, but you can certainly look at it that way.
Yeah, trying to make Godzilla relatable as a character. James, what about you? Anything we missed? Any parting shots?
Um, I'd like to piggyback on what Sean said about the nuclear stuff. I think as our concerns change, we're fortunately not as worried about nuclear war as we were when you and I were kids. Certain, or all of us were kids, certainly, growing up during the Cold War. But I think kaiju just in general make a great allegory for like global warming and which is the big existential crisis that we face right now. And I think as long as we need to tell those kind of stories, we'll have kaiju there to tell it, including Godzilla.
Excellent. That's a very good point. Sean, how about you? A parting shot?
Again, I'm just going to back up what everybody else has said. It's still a teachable moment in there somewhere. When you were talking about Smog Monster earlier, when I was a kid and watched that, I just saw, Hydra fly over and poison the people and they died. And you just think of it as a monster killing people. And as an adult, you realize, no, we've created the pollution that's killed ourselves. And that's the real theme there. So that again, hopefully that's a teachable moment that we can use to start to turn that around.
Yeah. I'm gonna end with, I think my favorite Godzilla moments are the ones where this is the rubber suit thing again, but they do the close-ups where they've got like, I don't know if they've built a head or the mask is different, but he like emotes, and it's that Japanese kids show version of emoting, but it's just adorable, and it works. Like, I think one of the things that's really interesting about some of the Godzilla movies is I get the feeling they knew that there was an English speaking audience also. So there's like a lot of hand gestures so that the dubbed in language isn't, they don't really have to get the translation right because everybody's going like this and going like this. It's just very interesting watching them work to multiple audiences at the same time. Kids, adults, Japanese, people in the West, people all over the world. Yeah, it's that it's an explosions movie with an important moral message behind it and an allegory. It's right there, always these levels, which makes it so interesting. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for this topic. What I want to do is what I call paying the bills. We're going to go around the horn one more time. I want you to remind everybody who you are, and I want you to help our Monsterama fans be able to track you down on the interwebs, find your website, social media, whatever you want to share with us. And I'm going to let James go first on this one.
Hi, I am James Palmer. I write science fiction and pulp adventure. I'm editor of the Monster Earth trilogy. You can find me at jamespalmerbooks.net. I also have a Patreon, patreon.com/James Palmer.
Hey James, you hiccuped a little bit there. I hate to do this to you. Can you do it again?
Oh,
3, 2, 1.
Yeah. James Palmer. You can find me at jamespalmerbooks.net or on Patreon at patreon.com/James Palmer.
Excellent. Thank you. Sean?
I'm again Sean Lincolnback, big Godzilla collector and fan. I do run a Facebook group that's called Kaiju Monster Movie Poster Fans. So if you ever have any questions on movie posters, whether authenticity, what's real, what's not, what's out there, how hard is stuff to find, come seek out our group and ask questions, and people there to help you.
Thank you, Sean. Bernie, how can people track you down?
Hi, my name is Bernadette Johnson. My website is berniejohnson.com, just BERNI without the E at the end. And I also have stories on Vocal under Bernadette Johnson. I have a lot of short stories and several books of trivia. Two are out, and one's out and one's coming out, and another one's in the works. One's spy trivia, one's horse trivia, and now cryptids. But yeah, you can find my work at berniejohnson.com and my ramblings.
Excellent. Thank you, Bernie. And again, I'm Darren M. Bush. You can find my short stories on my Amazon authors page for the Kindle, but also you can find my YouTube channel, Tables of Content, on YouTube, of course. And you'll see me at Monsterama, not just this year, but next year. And also, I've got Conjuration is another convention I'm working at that's coming up in November, and then the cycle starts over again next year with all the conventions in or near the Atlanta area. So this is the part where I ask our fabulous Godzilla fans to wave goodbye to the Monsterama audience. Thank you so much. See you later.
Okay.
Bye.